Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever, wherever you're listening to this show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. Glad to be back live on the air for those of you that are listening live. And for those of you that listen to the recordings, welcome to you as well. I'm glad to be back in the USA, as I've titled this episode, 2 weeks in Europe. Was nice seeing family, was nice doing a little bit of touristy stuff, a little bit of sentimental journey, visiting some of my old haunts. But I was so glad to get back here. Oh, folks, you can't believe how much. And of course, jumping right into the thick of it, because hardly got back, and we had the first of the presidential candidate debates. Fireworks immediately. Lots going on there. Going to be talking a little bit about that tonight, although I'm sure a lot of you have seen all the different pundits left, right, and center chatting. Anyway, so say hi to the chat room. Rex has arrived there. Hi, Rex. Welcome from Sin City. And I, as I mentioned, had a good vacation, and just raring to go. So let's get on with it. So here was me arriving back in the US about 1 o'clock on Saturday morning. Flight from Amsterdam was actually delayed by about 7 hours, which sounds bad, but actually worked out quite well for us. It meant we left later, rather than leaving mid-afternoon, we actually left late-ish in the evening, which meant we could go straight to sleep on the plane. And when we arrived at 1 o'clock in the morning and had a 7-hour drive home, long story, won't bore you with that, we discovered that, of course, our buddies said, oh, it's not 1 o'clock in the morning. It may be dark outside, but my body tells me it's actually 7 o'clock in the morning. And so the drive back wasn't that bad at all. So it all kind of worked out well. And the 7 hours had another advantage, because that bastion of bureaucracy called the EU, which has... So I always rant on a little bit about one of the things they did, and I guess I'm bad, but I'm going to benefit from that bureaucracy. One of the things they introduced were compulsory compensation when flights were delayed, and because our flight was more than 1,000 miles, 4.5 to be precise, but who's counting? And our delay, actually our arrival delay wasn't 7 hours. It ended up only being about 5.5, but it was more than 5 hours, which means that we get compensation, which turned out to be roughly equal to what we paid for our tickets. So our transatlantic flights hopefully will get paid for by the airline. Now, I haven't seen the money yet, but we'll see. Anyway, Rex was asking, did I feel like an out-of-place American? You know what? I did, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. So let's get on with the show, as we like to say. And the first topic, of course, is a review of the debate. As I said a little bit earlier, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the comments by pundits, left, right, and centre, whether it's the Hannitys, the Rushes, whether it's on Facebook, whether you've looked at what Politico and what the left are saying. Obviously, all the regressives, all the left are saying, oh, Hillary had a great day. Everybody on the right is saying Donald held his own and showed that he could be presidential in the face of, I have to say, I think, relatively biased moderating again. We've seen this time and time again in the primary debates, and now again here. Now, I have to be honest. In these presidential candidate debates, we have people from the left and the right, so unless we find very, very honest moderators, we kind of have to share it between them. Now, I think for the primary debates, I think it's very acceptable to have biased moderators, biased in the sense that they are GOP, right-wing, whatever you want to call it, oriented, or liberals that are doing the Democrat candidates. I think that's relatively acceptable. You still want them within those bounds, though, to be equally hard on all the candidates. And we saw in some of the primary debates that Trump was time and time again bombarded with a lot more negative questions than anybody else. And, of course, that happened again last night. Lester Holt really shamed his so-called journalistic heritage and shamed his network and really showed a lot of bias. Any number of different things that I saw today in terms of the number of, measuring the number of interruptions that were between 50 and 100% more for Donald Trump than Hillary got interrupted. The kinds of questions asking Donald Trump about his taxes, about the years ago some Miss Universe lady that had basically turned out to be a very bad contestant and a very bad Miss Universe, and his comments about calling him out on comments about that, whereas Hillary got a pass on Benghazi, on her email, on the foundation. None of these things were discussed, were asked of her. Trump tried to bring some in, the email especially, but she basically ducked and weaved. And so all the left saying, oh, she did such a good job. Yeah, she got all the softball questions. Of course she was going to do a better job. So although I would even say overall she seemed to do a better job, I think the result of Lester Holt's bias has become so obvious that a lot of middle-of-the-road people are going to be looking at that saying, you know what, Donald Trump didn't get a fair shake. So if he didn't do as well as Hillary, he still deserves to basically to get benefit from the debate. And I think one of the big things on Donald's side was that in spite of the goading both from Holt and from Hillary, he really kept his cool and acted presidential. Occasionally, he tried to override Lester Holt when Lester was interrupting Mr. Trump. He was a little bit the alpha male, which some commentators said might have turned some of the people off. But he stood up for himself, and he wasn't allowed. He tried to stop lies being told about things that he may have said before. So I think overall, even though she seemed to have a better debate on one level, I think when people take a step back and think about it, they're going to sort of say, but yeah, it was biased against Trump. Trump didn't lose his cool in spite of that. And I think they will basically give him the brownie points for this debate. Now, there are still 2 debates to go, and I think a very good comment that I heard today was that, in a way, because Trump doesn't have experience in this format, especially the one-on-one, he did very well in the primary debates, but I think at the end there was still a debate of 4 people on the stage, whereas now it was just 2. Well, 3 if you include the moderator, because it was sort of 2 against 1 kind of thing. But it is a different format. He's not a politician. He hasn't been doing it all his life, and I think he's learning from it. So I think the next 2 will go better. I understand the next one's more of a town hall format. So it's going to be interesting to see how they twist the questions for that. And I hope that the last one will be another kind of almost free debate like they did have now. I think other than the questions that came up, I think the format was great. I liked it. The fact that they sort of each had a couple of minutes to answer a question and then basically let loose. And if Lester Holt had not interrupted that much, I think it would have been better. And I think the first 20 minutes of the debate were pretty good because they were both given exactly the same question and needed to answer it. And in both cases, I think Hillary more so than Trump, but in both cases, there were occasions when they didn't really answer the question. And then after about 20 minutes, that's when Lester Holt started giving the kind of more specific questions, and that's when I think he lost it, and when the whole debate started going downhill. So for Chris Wallace in the final debate, he probably doesn't listen to this show, but if he does, or if anybody listening to it knows Chris Wallace, tell him, you will do a great service to America, and you will do a great service to yourself if you try and find a bunch of questions that basically will bring up things on both sides of the candidate. So things that will apply to Trump as well as to Clinton. If you can, if Chris Wallace can do that, I think it will make for a very good debate. And as it's the last one before the election, that's the way it should be. We know that Chris Wallace is a registered Democrat. He is more left-wing than many on FNC, although there seem to be a lot more on FNC than there used to be. Fair and balanced is getting a little unfair and unbalanced. But to date, I have to say Chris Wallace has tended to be reasonably fair and balanced. Obviously not in this situation of a Democrat against a Republican, but he had in the Democratic primary, the questions he brought up, most of them were relatively what I would say straightforward and not as many gotchas. It was the Megyn Kellys, etc., that were very obviously trying to shaft Trump. But anyway, we'll see. It will be the last debate. 2 more. And, of course, the Vice President's debate coming up on the 4th. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen there. But we'll have to wait a few days. I think probably it won't be until the weekend that we really see if there was any change in the polling. Donald Trump, just before the election and, while we were away in Europe, didn't follow very much news. In Spain, virtually nothing. In the Netherlands, my daughter has CNN International, the Clinton News Network. Yeah. And I have to apologize for my eldest daughter because she is totally under the spell of CNN. So, you can't really... We didn't bother. We just told her, turn it off. We're not interested. And we waited till we got back to find out what was going on. And we're very pleased to see that Trump was more or less equal or ahead in a number of states. Okay, folks, I see that commercial time has come and gone, so I need to slip this in quickly. And... I will be back after these messages while I take a sip from my beer.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
You're listening to Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, broadcast on the internet, and also available at archives.patriotcomelately.us, a proud member of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. Okay, folks, that was the commercials. Let's see. Just quickly before we go to the next topic, I want to mention the beer I'm drinking, and that's for a specific reason, because while we're talking about the elections and everything, and you know, kind of America is at our forefront, the beer I'm currently drinking is actually a recipe from 1452. That's right, folks, 1452. Think about that. the beer in this recipe, well, not the beer, but the recipe was being used even before Columbus discovered America. Now, of course, we all know that a few others from Europe discovered America before Columbus, right? The Leif Erikson and possibly also people from Wales, who knows, from Africa. So there was probably a little bit more backwards and forwards across the Atlantic than we really like to think of. But I mean, for most Americans, Columbus discovered America, and that was the time. But that was 1492, folks. So this beer was basically being brewed 40 years before Columbus discovered America. Just think about that. Kind of puts things a little in perspective, doesn't it? Now, it's actually a Dutch beer. While I was over there, I was looking for bottles. There is a brewery now recreating this. That's where I got the recipe from. But I couldn't get any of that beer. But instead, I did go to one of the Trappist monasteries and did a tour there. Was able to try some of their beers. Great tasting. Most breweries, you get a tasting and they give you little glasses. You can try all the different tastes. They just gave you 4 glasses of their 4 best beers, and they were just normal full glasses. I was so glad my daughter was driving that day, because I was able to enjoy some very nice beer, and actually brought back a couple of bottles of their top-of-the-line beer, which is going to be put down like a wine and kept for 6 to 24 months, however patient I can be, because it just gets better with age. But anyway, I digress, folks. Let's get back to politics, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And I do want to talk about my trip from a political point of view. A number of different things. What we spent, I would say, about 2/3 of the trip in the Netherlands and 1/3 in Spain. In Spain, we're on an island. We're on Mallorca, the island of Mallorca. I have to say there that it was relatively Spanish, other than a lot of tourists being there. To me, it was still a little European. Now, Europe has become relatively expensive, we found, especially northwest Europe, so the Netherlands. Also hear the same thing about Belgium and Germany. But Spain, because of the economic crisis there, in a way, it was relatively cheap. So it was quite interesting, though they tried to have one common market. There were differences, and we were able to eat some very nice seafood for quite a low price. Impact of a certain religion in that part of Spain, minimal. Now, in Holland, very, very different. I haven't been there for a while. My last couple of trips back to Europe were just to the UK. Didn't really get to Holland, so I haven't been there for quite a number of years. And it is amazing to see how much Islamized the country has become. That's the only way you can say it. Now, Holland has always been a country that prides itself on being a very open and accepting community. Whatever your religion, and remember the Puritans, the pilgrims that came to America, left England and lived in the Netherlands for a while before they came across to America. So, they had that same sort of open community at that time, and they still pride themselves on it now. But Islam has definitely taken a noticeable hold in the Netherlands, and it was there that I have to say, quite honestly, that we experienced a couple of times what I would say, I don't want to say negative, but less than positive reaction to the fact that while we spoke Dutch, my wife and I, when it became apparent that we either lived in America or were Americans, that there was a definite coolness in the air. Let's put it that way. Very interesting to see that, but it tended to be people of Middle Eastern heritage that we felt that, strangely enough. Not totally, but primarily. So it was, it left us feeling uncomfortable. And it was one of the reasons why, I have to be honest, I was just so happy to be back 2 weeks over there. A little bit less, actually, because we left on a Monday and we came back on a Friday, so it wasn't quite a full 2 weeks. But no, it was long enough for me. And as I said before, it was just sad to see what has happened to the Netherlands, and just also the reactions of, let's say, the original Dutch themselves. They're sort of a little swamped by everything that's going on, and you just see a kind of a give up attitude. Okay, we can't fight it, and let's just go along with it. Very, very strange. Anyway, Rex asked me earlier, did I feel like an out-of-place American? And he asked me that in the chat room, and I wanted to say, yes, we did. Not all of the time, of course. Speaking the lingo helps, and people some of the time don't realize. But, and there were also very good things. Going around the Trappist monastery when I did the brewery tour there, and the guy had asked where people were from, and I, he says, "Oh, you're obviously from Holland." I said, "No, actually, I live in America." No negativity there at all, but we had some instances elsewhere, and another time at the airport at the check-in, where the lady basically said, "Well, why would you want to go and live in America if you're Dutch?" So we did feel like the out-of-place Americans. But anyway, so it's sad to see, but that's what happens when you allow people in that are not really prepared to assimilate. And it's one thing that I think we need to be very careful for here. So that's my little rant about America. About Europe, and brought in a little bit about beer there as well. I think, sorry, Paul, to see that you're having audio problems. Hopefully it is your headphones. You've got it sorted out. I've got about a minute and a half to go, so I am going to go to the next topic, and we'll start on that. And I think it's a very apt one, because we're going to talk about voting and voter ID. Obviously, very something that's going to be a hot topic in the weeks to come. Yes, so the big debate about voter ID, as we all know, the left are just absolutely in a panic, in a tizzy about any kind of voter ID, saying this is, voter suppression, yada yada yada. And of course, on the right, we say no. We want to make sure that the people who are allowed to vote are eligible to vote. The left says, "Oh, but there's no voter fraud." Oh, there is lots of voter fraud. Got lots of examples of absentee ballot fraud. Just another report about hundreds of people that were non-citizens in one state voting, being signed up and being on the rolls, getting getting the information about whether or not they actually voted has been very difficult, because the Secretary of State in that state basically put an embargo on providing any of that kind of information. Now, if you vote as a non-citizen, that is a felony. And in that state, I'm trying to remember which state it was. I think it was Missouri, but I'm not 100% certain. It's a federal felony with a prison term, fines, and a prison term of up to a year, and state felony with penalties of prison time not less than a year and up to 5 years. So, but nothing's happened, and they know that these people are non-citizens because through freedom of information, the group was able to get that, but it was like pulling hen's teeth. Why are they fighting it that much? And when it's discovered, you'd think they would take action, that the Secretary of State and the Voting Bureau people would take action. They don't. Okay. I see the clock has been ticking again, so it's time for the next set of commercials. And in order to be able to enjoy my 1452 beer, maybe a little bit of music after that as well.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
This is Stefan, your Patriot come lately, proud to be on Red Nation Rising Radio. These can be dark and depressing times, but Main Street USA finally has a competitive voice to traditional mainstream media outlets, and it's screaming at all hours, 24/7, we want our country back. America, it's time to wake up, expose the regressives, and keep listening to the new dominant force in conservative internet talk radio, the Red Nation Rising Radio Network, powered by ICRN.
Not too long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, didn't it? For a vacation or a new car. But today, withdrawing your own cash has become risky. Pat Boone here for Swiss America. According to The Secret War, a new Swiss America white paper, I learned that all banks are now required to spy on you and me for the government, and then report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. You must read The Secret War. It's free. Truth is, I believe the government's new war against cash is really a war against us all. But the secret is now out. So please, get and read The Secret War.
Call 800-516-3405. 800-516-3405. 800-516-3405. Call right now. That number again is 800-516-3405.
You're listening to Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, broadcast on the internet, and also available at archives.patriotcomelately.us, a proud member of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network.
Don't want a new Republic of America. You'll have to get in line to get your handouts. Promises broken to Americans. While you sleep away your life, you lose your freedoms. Well, I never believed that a country as great as the USA could fade away. Liberty bells ringing this here to warn us. But I gotta keep holding on to the dream that we'll be okay, continue to be free. Our forefathers' words will reach deaf ears all around us. You better stand up, speak out right now before you lose your rights. Sitting on the fence won't help, come out and join the fight. Many died for your liberty. So I say pack up your bags and join us on the freedom train, the freedom train, the freedom train. Listen up in Washington, with voices mighty loud will make you hear us. More than 200 years of independence. Your only job right now is to represent us. Well, I know in my heart they're trying to change the USA, no matter what they say. Campaign promises spoken have all been broken. While they mesmerize us with the front door speeches, the back door's open for special interests. Well, greedy politicians won't make it in the next election. You better stand up, speak out right now before you lose your eyes. Sitting on the fence won't help. Come out and join the fight. Men, you died for your liberties. We can't let them die in vain. So I say pack up your bags and join us on the freedom train, the freedom train. Who's gonna stand and fight for your rights? Right and left and in between, you better come together like a family. Don't wanna lose a way of life on the road in the night. The night. You better stand up, speak out right now before you lose your rights. Sitting on the fence won't let. Come out and join the fight. So you better stand up, speak out right now before you lose your rights. Sitting on the fence won't help. Come out and join the fight. Men, you died for your liberties. We can't let them die in vain. So I say pack up your bags and join us. Pack up your bags and join us. Pack up your bags and join us on the freedom train, the freedom train, the freedom train.
Yeah, that was Stand Up and Join Us on the Freedom Train. Again, one of those liberty songs with great words. And hopefully we will be able to do that. At the moment, we're in dire straits. And if we end up with Hillier, then my title for this show, Back in the USSA, will definitely be applicable. And for those of you that don't know what I mean there, send me an email, stephan@patrickcomelately.us, or put it in the chat room if you're listening live, and ask me, and I'll explain it to you. Okay, folks. I was talking about voter ID and the age-old discussion about should we have it, should we not, and basically the left saying no, it's voter suppression, and the right saying yes, we should do it. Well, as I mentioned before the break, lots of examples of fraud. So let's just get that off the table and say we should have it. However, you still have these discussions with regressives about requiring ID and what you need it for. Now, the traditional argument is always that that people will say, well, you need it to buy liquor, to buy prescriptions, at retail stores, etc. They tend to be some of the high ones to open a bank account, to do this, do that. If you really want to box in your liberal friends, here's the one. When they say, well, no, you shouldn't need an ID, a picture ID to vote, right? Because it's a constitutional right. Voting, by the way, isn't a constitutional right, but it talks about voting, but it doesn't say it's a constitutional right for everyone. But anyway, even if it does, so the way to box in the lefties is to say, yeah, that's right. So why do we have to show an ID to buy a firearm, which is also a constitutional right and could be argued is more of a constitutional right than voting is? Think about it, folks. Isn't that a good argument? That's a much better one than buying booze or getting on an airplane or anything. Travel, again, is one of those things that you could say is a constitutional right. But you have to kind of your interpretation of certain words in the Constitution. But the Second Amendment, pretty damn clear, right? And so if you say, yeah, but to buy a gun, you've got to show an ID, so why shouldn't you show an ID when you vote? They're both constitutional rights. If you don't want to discuss the constitutionality of it, but you can just say, so, where's the moral equivalence with those? And that I think that kind of boxes the lefties in. But there are some other things that are rights or people see as rights that require an ID. Welfare benefits, a lot of the time, IDs for many states, not all, are required. Even New York, one of the more regressive cities in America, the city's website says residents will need to get an ID to get a job, cash a check, open a bank account, enter a government building. And it further says to be eligible for some public benefits, you need to prove your identity, age, and residence. So there you are, folks. It's another argument. So we said buying a firearm, right? You need an ID for that. Obviously, they vary. The laws actually vary very much from state to state, with the top of the mountain being District of Columbia, where the landmark Heller Supreme Court decision was passed, but they still make it very difficult to own a gun. But even so, for most states, yes, you have to have an ID so they can check up who's buying. So if you've got to have an ID for that, why not for voting? Petition your government. That's another constitutional right. It says in the Constitution, you have the right to petition your government. But if you want to meet with the Department of Justice official, should I say Department of Injustice official, you have to show a government-issued photo ID to get into the Department of Injustice building. So the very people, these corrupt folks who are telling us, hey folks, we don't think that you should be restricting voting in any way through a photo ID, actually need a photo ID for you to get in and discuss that with them. Hypocrisy, isn't it? The right of assembly, so that's a constitutional right. You're allowed to assemble. Now, many municipalities for public safety require permits under certain circumstances, but most of these permits require some kind of paperwork by the organizers and usually some form of identification. On top of that, when people are stopped by the police, they can be required to show you have to prove who you are through identification. The police can request that, and you should just do that. Don't argue that. ACLU does stress, though, you don't have to answer any questions, but you do have to identify yourself. Another right, the right to marry. Now, 1967, Loving versus Virginia ruled by the Supreme Court. Marriage is now seen as a fundamental right. But in order to do that, you do need to have a valid photo identification to get a marriage license in most states. Same thing again in that bastion of liberalism, New York City. We talked about the freedom of movement. That's also part of the Constitution. However, obviously they didn't know about airplanes at the time, but in order to get on an airplane, you have to have a photo ID, right? So that's another one. So if you look at it, the 1960s civil rights movement was part of the right to travel on trains and public buses. So we have a right to travel on planes and trains, but a lot of the time you need to show ID there. And public accommodations, you have to show ID. If you stay in a hotel, a lot of the time you've got to produce ID. So, I mean, there are 7 kind of things that people either see as rights or are actual rights in the Constitution, and you need an ID for that. So why not for voting? Strangely enough, the person who wrote the article listing these 7 said that they had contacted the ACLU, which is involved in current litigation against voter ID laws in a number of states, telling the reporter that no one is available to comment regarding these other civil liberties that require some form of ID. Very, very strange. Okay, folks, I see it is time again for another commercial break. So, time to take the final sips of my beer. I'll be back.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more on your federal or state income taxes, I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. The IRS, with their Fresh Start initiative, is offering more flexible terms to Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. They can help you lift your wage garnishments, stop bank levies, and put your tax problem behind you once and for all. If you owe tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS or state, our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, we can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your debt for far less than what you owe. 800-357-8110. 800-357-8110. 800-357-8110. 800-357-8110.
The offer of a franchise can only be made through delivery of a franchise disclosure document. Imagine yourself being a leader in America's fastest growing demographic category. More than 10,000 people a day turn 65, and a large percentage are going to need a helping hand at home or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-643-7508. For Always Best Care, 1-800-643-7508. Call today.
You're listening to Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, broadcast on the internet, and also available at archives.patriotcomelately.us, a proud member of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. Okay, folks, the final few minutes of the show. Again, I haven't been able to cover all the topics that I wanted to, but I do want to pick up on this one because a number of the topics that I had lined up for tonight and we didn't get round to, a lot of them are concerning the influence of Muslims in America, the Muslim Brotherhood, Huma Abedin, some introduction of Sharia law in the UK and in Canada, or Sharia-like laws. And I think people a lot of times say, well, that's religion bashing. Well, not really. What I'm trying to do is wake up America to the fact that most of the time what we're facing is not a religion. It's a political ideology that masquerades as a religion. I think I've said that before. So I wanted to kind of go a little bit further in on that and tell you some of my ideas on this. If a religion prescribes its followers from partaking in alcoholic beverages, for example, that's a religious tenet. And a religious tenet should be acceptable. We are a country with freedom of religion. Now, as an example, Mormons. They are not allowed to drink alcohol. They're not allowed to drink sodas and tea and coffee, etc. Now, I've worked with Mormons, and if we went out in the evening or had a party where adult beverages were being served, the Mormons would join us, but just drink fruit juices. No problem with that. However, if a religion instructs its followers to avoid alcohol, not be around it, not attend parties where it's being served, not allow it to be served to those who do not follow that religion, right? If Muslims say, if you want me to come to the party, you can't serve alcohol, you're putting your will onto other people. That religion does not allow people to work transporting alcohol. We had truck drivers who refused to do that. Cab drivers who refuse to drive travelers who are carrying alcohol. For example, arriving at the airport with duty free, and they'll say, we don't want to carry them. To me, that's not a religion anymore, it's political ideology. If a religion prescribes its followers from eating certain foods, for example, the Jewish requirement of kosher foods, the prohibition of pork, that's a religious tenet. That's acceptable. However, if a religion not only prescribes the eating of pork for its followers, but prescribes the handling of pork products in a retail store, has its followers complaining if non-followers eat pork products in the vicinity of followers, if eating establishments have exhaust fans that blow bacon fumes into public areas. Again, that's a political ideology. It's not a religion. So perhaps you see a thread here. If you apply your religion tenets to yourself, it's acceptable. If you want to force them on other people, that should not be acceptable. So that's my take on that, folks. I see we've reached the end of the show. The music is starting. I want to thank you for coming, and see you all next week. We'll discuss the polls, see how Donald's doing. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.